speak. And today's speaker, Meg Calendo, is representing an organization called the Peaceful Prisons Project, and they actually contacted us first. And they talked with Outreach, and Outreach referred them to Forum, and so here we are. I wouldn't steal Meg's thunder if I could, but I can't because almost every question has been answered with, I'll tell about that. So I am really happy to introduce Meg Calendo, who is the Communications Director of the Peaceful Prisons Project, and the floor is yours.
That was probably the nicest introduction I've ever gotten. Well, wow. Well, good morning, everyone. Can you hear me okay? Okay. Well, I wanted to actually start not looking at my speech because today's sermon knocked me over. I was teary-eyed, and gosh, if that is not living out the gospel. A lot of what Father had said is going to tie into what I'm talking about today. So I really ask that you possibly think over today's sermon and really let it resonate and sit with you in ways that how can I extend this out into the world? But thank you again for welcoming me to your beautiful community. It is such a privilege to stand before you and share a message of hope, connection, and transformation. My name is Meg Calendo, and some of you may know me or possibly see me at Target, as I've grown up and lived in Cedarburg my entire life. I've been a member at Trinity Lutheran Church for over 20 years, and I'm honored to represent the Peaceful Prisons Project today. Peaceful Prisons Project is an organization dedicated to bringing restorative justice, support, and healing to everyone involved in the prison system. From incarcerated individuals to correctional officers, law enforcement employees, and families. As a faith-based community, I know many of you carry a deep sense of compassion and gratitude for serving others. Our mission at Peaceful Prisons aligns with that calling of grace to help create spaces where healing and understanding can flourish, even in the most challenging environments. Let me begin by sharing some truths about the current state of the prison system. Over 2 million people are currently incarcerated in the United States. But the impact of incarceration doesn't stop there. It does not stop with who is in a cell. It extends to families like mine, and particularly children who often experience feelings of deep loss and isolation. It also affects correctional officers who face high rates of moral injury, mental health struggles, and turnover due to the immense stress of their work that then trickles down. Our mission is to be a beacon of support and transformation in this space. The Peaceful Prisons Project focuses on restorative justice, bringing everyone involved to the system to the table to acknowledge harm, seek accountability, and foster healing. We believe that lasting change requires addressing the humanity in everyone, whether they're wearing a uniform or living in a cell. Our work is hands-on and community-centered. Let me share 4 core of our initiatives. Bonding through books. This heartfelt initiative is designed to strengthen the bond between incarcerated parents and their children through the shared joy of reading. Our mission is to create children's libraries within prison facilities, offering families the opportunity to bond in person or virtual visits. These special moments together allow parents and children to read together, and afterwards, the children can take home the books to cherish, reread, and relive the love and connection shared with their parent. We believe that every child deserves love and guidance, no matter the circumstances. This is quickly growing, and many states have actually reached out to us to start their program in their facilities. Supportive Forces is a program dedicated to fostering healthier, more compassionate environments within the carceral system by prioritizing the well-being of correctional staff. And we believe that supporting the mental health of the officers directly enhances their ability to access self-care and mental health strategies, ultimately improving the system as a whole. Our tailored services are designed to meet the unique needs of each facility, including counseling support and mental health awareness training, empowering the staff to navigate the challenges of their roles with resilience and empathy. The goal of Supportive Forces is to have peer-to-peer training experiences, and this program is currently launching in Maine. We also have the Peaceful Prisons podcast, where this invites you into the lives of people you otherwise may have never met. It is a platform we use to amplify diverse voices, stories, and our goal is to change the narrative, educate, learn, grow as a community, and unite in the change that is so desperately needed to be seen. We also have Positive Perspectives. These initiatives focus on creating a dialogue with the broader community like this today. Through these conversations and events, we work to foster understanding, accountability, and reconciliation. It's about shifting the culture from punishment to humanity. You may hear me use terms like system impacted or incarcerated individual, and this is because as a society, it's easy to see someone as a statistic or fitting into a box. But when in reality, these are individuals with families. Now at this point, you may be wondering, Meg, why prisons? Well, let me tell you how I got involved with Peaceful Prisons Project. As I said before, I grew up here. I'm your neighbor, but what you don't know about me, and what many don't know about me, is that I have a little brother. And it's not out of shame that I don't talk about him, but out of a deep, deep sense of hurt. My half-brother Ryan and I were born at the same hospital in San Diego by the same doctor, 7 years apart. 8 months after I was born, my mom brought me here to Cedarburg to live with our family. My brother Ryan grew up just outside of San Diego. What you might also not know by looking at me or speaking with me is that I'm the highest owed case of child support in the state of Wisconsin. It's me, I'm right here. I'm doing okay. I was raised by my mom and my grandparents, and Ryan had grown up with his mom and our father in separate homes. As soon as I learned that I had a brother, I began to pray for him every night, and I never stopped praying. When I was in high school, I was called out of class and told our dad was in the Ozaukee County Jail. They said I had to be notified since there was a restraining order set in place for me that I was completely unaware of. And while our dad served 13 months in county jail, my brother was sent to foster care for a brief time until family was able to take him in. Unfortunately, Ryan grew up in a neglectful environment with drug use and lack of support. Growing up, Ryan and I would be able to speak to each other when he was at our dad's home, but only on our dad's terms. Even back then, when he was 11 and I was 18, I could tell that he and I were so similar. We share the same humor, taste in music and movies. He's extremely intelligent. In middle school, he was one of the top in his class and was well on his way in track and field. I loved him with all of my heart. Dad, unfortunately, had become very toxic, and I had to cut ties, which meant I lost access to my brother. Years later, we connected on our own, and when I was in my early 20s, I learned that when I fell on hard times growing up, I turned to my support system, my grandparents, my church family, my friends and their parents. And when Ryan fell on hard times, he was searching for family, and his support system became the neighborhood's gang. When Ryan and I connected for the final time, he said he was running away from Dad's home, and he said not to worry, Meg, and that he loved me, and that he didn't know when he was going to speak to me again. The next time I saw him was years later, when my mom called me to ask if I was sitting down. There I was, at 25 years old, reading an article that named my little brother in a gang-related crime with 2 older known gang members. And I had never cried harder in my entire life than I had that day. Ryan and I recently reconnected a year ago, and after a lot of healing and growing. The first time we spoke on the phone, we said over and over how sorry we were for abandoning one another, even though neither of us ever thought the other one had. But we carried that guilt. And in reality, we were just kids in circumstances beyond what most could comprehend. Yes, we are numbers and statistics, but we are a family. Ryan was working on his degree in business and worked as an apprenticeship program through a California state prison. He played basketball, baseball, football, and handball. And in the state of California, he was given many opportunities for rehabilitation and family connection. We had free phone calls. He had access to a tablet for messaging at 5 cents a minute, message, which was everything to me, because him being able to have contact with me in real time meant that he was able to be there for me in some of the hardest times of my life. He also had access to education tools, a law library, and a video visit a week. We talk to each other every day. We talk about life, we help each other, we play Jeopardy, we discuss ancient history and science, which is totally normal and cool. In the state of Wisconsin, phone calls are not free. They do not have access to tablets. They don't have as many opportunities for education. And for families who can't afford to put money on their loved ones' accounts, it is very isolating. There are some days where you're in your cell for 23 hours a day. Recidivism or returning to prison is far less likely when a person has access to education and connection with family. The ability to contact each other has healed us in ways that we never thought possible. You may have noticed that I was using some past tense phrases. Ryan's case was reviewed by the Supreme Court, and after facing a life sentence at 18 years old, he is now out as of Wednesday at 27 years old. He has so many dreams and aspirations, and I can't wait to see him flourish. My why is because of Ryan. My why is because there are so many out there like him who do not have the support and who are not given the same opportunities that California allows. Rehabilitation and connection can end the cycle by ending generational trauma for families and children. A few years ago, I volunteered as through a program in the Ozaki Family Services, and the program helped children through loss. Some of my group had also had parents in the system, and they were growing up in situations like mine and Ryan's. And one day, I asked the kids what they admired about each other, and they wanted to include me. After the kids had left, on tiny pieces of ripped paper and shaky handwriting, I read the messages. Miss Meg is there for me. Miss Meg listens to me and gives me hugs when I'm sad. These are things that no third grader should ever go without, let alone be grateful for at such a young age. Peaceful Prisons Project has connected me to system-impactive individuals who serve time and are now mentors and leaders in their communities. They do this for the victims that they had harmed, to bring awareness and to help others. Many have gone on to get degrees, work to change legislation, and have long-term employments. Most of these same people didn't even have a GED when they went into the prison system. They attribute their success to having strong support system, being given opportunities and education while incarcerated, and for many, having a relationship with God. I've seen firsthand the effects of allowing someone space to share their stories. They then hold space for others. My why is because God called me here to you, to be a voice for the voiceless, and to bring awareness to breaking cycles, and putting humanity back into the human experience. As people of faith, we are uniquely positioned to be agents of grace, and here's how you can get involved. Volunteering. We're growing at a really rapid rate. We are 100% volunteer-based. I have a full-time job, and I do this for an extra 20 hours a week, and then add on top of that, trying to help my brother navigate the world. So we need people who can help lead reading sessions, provide mentorship, or facilitate restorative justice dialogues such as this. Advocating. Share our message with your networks. Invite others to learn about the Peaceful Prisons Project and the importance of supporting both incarcerated individuals and those who work within the system. It all starts with one person who speaks out. Giving. Your financial support allows us to expand programs to other states and your contributions also help bonding through books to develop new resources for education and correctional officers. And lastly, pray. Please pray for everyone touched by the prison system. Pray for healing, reconciliation, and peace for families like mine and for children who don't have their parents. At its core, Peaceful Prisons Project is about honoring the dignity of every human being, no matter their story. It's about acknowledging brokenness in our systems and choosing to respond with compassion and action. I invite each of you to reflect on how you can contribute to this mission, whether through volunteering, donating, or simply sharing our story. Every action matters. And if you'd like to learn more about Peaceful Prisons Project and our upcoming events, please connect with me. We're very active on our social media. And if you'd like to get involved, there is a QR code on the back table there that leads to our website. But I'm definitely open to questions as well. And if you're wondering, yes, this is a picture of my little brother Ryan right before he had gotten out. Thank you guys so much. Does anyone have any questions for me? I can pass. I can come to you. How's that sound? I'm mobile. Okay, maybe not as mobile as I thought I was. I'm coming. Go ahead, love.
A little tiny.
It is a little tiny one.
Some years ago, I used to collect books by giving a large party, and everyone brought books for children, which were taken to the Racine prison because they had a Learn to Read program, which was helpful to the staff as well as to those incarcerated. The program shut down, and all of us were devastated that we couldn't contribute. It was about 150 books each Christmas. And they were all children's books because, of course, that's where they began to read, the incarcerated people began to read. Sorry. Is there such a program anywhere that would be helpful if I started it again?
Yeah. So absolutely. So if you didn't hear, she was saying that the Racine prison system had ended being able to receive books. And that was really helping some of the people inside to learn how to read. That was their start. The answer is actually kind of devastating. The answer is that Wisconsin is very locked down. It is not similar to California and other states. It is not similar to Maine. They are not allowing books. They are not allowing Bibles. I don't know quite yet if they're allowing even new books to come in if you were to order them from Amazon and have them directly delivered. I will say, however, so what I didn't also mention is that we started in Cedarburg just in 2023. And so we've grown exponentially. And one of the reasons we've grown so much is because, number one, we focus on connections. So truly something like this is how we're getting started. Any donation we get goes directly into programs. And it is all about connections. It's truly just people hearing the story and then saying, I want to get involved, which is completely grassroots and wonderful. So to answer your question, the answer is yes. We are taking books, most certainly, new or preciously used. That's a cute phrase. I'm going to use that from now on, preciously used. We have been taking them down to New Mexico and Maine. They are so thankful. I believe right now we've helped over 3,500 families within a year. Now, granted, think about that. That's only a year. Imagine what it will be next year with more volunteers and more ability to go, because right now it's out of our pockets. We're driving these books into these prisons, and we're paying for our flights and things like that as well. we're actually asked to host possibly a workshop for Columbia University as well in the next coming months. But we collect these books all year round, and we were actually asked by the state of Florida as well to start a program there, possibly Arizona. What we've been noticing too is that, I don't know if you had heard in my speech, but we have been asked to renovate these visiting centers because it is so scary for children. It's very stark and bleak, and then the focus is no longer on your visitation. Your focus is on survival, fight or flight. It's hard for the parent to connect because they want to love their child, they want to be there for their child, but their child is scared. So what we're working on right now is renovating these spaces to be more child-friendly. We're also doing that a la Pocket as well. But with that being said, we are trying to get these to be community-based in each community. So what we're doing right now is we're asking some incarcerated individuals at Maine State Prison, because they do have the ability, they have access to tools and things like that, similar to California, to build the bookshelves. And that will be going into their own facilities. And we would love to be able to see that for everyone. So in Arizona, it'd be really lovely if they could also help and build their bookshelves, giving them something to look forward to and something to bring community all together. Does that answer your question? Oh, I have more questions. She was first.
I'm going to check this microphone is working. So.
Go ahead. I'll move back to the front so you don't all have to look at.
Could you talk more about what's going on in the Wisconsin system and why is it, just from what you're describing, not moving forward in the areas that you're trying to develop?
Yeah, that's a great question. So it's hard to say because they are so locked down. What I will say is because there were so many deaths. I don't know if you had heard about Waupun in specifics. They've been locked down for a long time. They had 4 deaths in 1 year, one of them being Megan Kolb's father. The Kolb family is actually from Cedarburg. You could also, if you went to our Instagram or Facebook page, you'll be able to see my interview with her. It's devastating, and she's trying to do as much as she can personally. But there are families that go up to Waupun almost every week and stand outside of the Waupun prison just trying to get someone to listen. And I will say that I don't know if you'd seen the news about the prisoners speaking about Luigi, where they were calling out, well, they were doing the same thing in Waupun, calling out to everybody down below to just say, hey, we're here, we need the help, we love you. So it's really hard to say. I think that in general, there is just a lot that they're keeping locked down right now, and I think they have a lot of overturn. There have been a lot of high turnover with positions as well, which I think is also assisting in not being able to have as much a relaxed atmosphere. I will also say that while Peaceful Prisons Project isn't a religious organization, because we'd like to touch on everyone, I'm obviously religious. So with that being said, I am part of Breaking Bread, Breaking Chains, which is right here in Milwaukee. Every Saturday they have a church service, so I attend that a lot of the times over Zoom. But they also will meet outside, so they meet with the men that are inside and they meet with the men who are recently returning home. And the first time that I had gone there, I sat next to a man also named Ryan, whose birthday was very close to my brother's. And I asked him, I said, so if you were in jail for 6 years, did you get a degree? And he looked at me and he said, a degree? And I said, yeah, what classes did you get to take? Was it like through MATC or something? And he said, you don't get education if you're in jail. And I said, but you were there for 6 years. What were you doing? Great question. That's how they get around that, because jail is essentially a turning point. It's either you're going home from jail or you're getting sent to prison from jail. So you don't have the ability to get your GED those 6 years you're sitting there. You don't get the ability to take classes. You don't get the ability to build anything to better the community, nothing like that. So I hope that we can get into Wisconsin prisons. That is a huge goal of ours. Right now, we're tackling other prisons that are allowing us in, other states, and in hopes that these connections will lead us throughout. Ooh, who
I
has
have-
the microphone?
I have the
Oh.
microphone, so, but just, but, but
First come, first serve.
just very quickly, so I can wrap my head around it, what is the issue with banning books? I just assumed they were available.
That's right. Yeah. So the thing with banning books, banning Bibles, is because drugs and things like that are getting into prisons. But what they won't tell you necessarily is a lot of the times it's the COs that are bringing in those things. And so it's very difficult because if you're in your cell for 23 hours a day, let's say here too, you don't have connection to your family if you don't have the means or the money. I've talked to several men here in Milwaukee actually that aren't able to connect with their family, and over Christmas they all wanted to pray for a man that's one of their cellies because he found out on Christmas Day that his son had died. And how difficult that must be, right? And so he was just trying to find some peace within himself, but if he could have had the ability to have a Bible or a book or something like that, I think that that could take a lot of edge off for a lot of people, just being able to actually do something, you know what I mean? It's hot up here, excuse me.
I know that some of the prisons do have libraries, and some are good and some are not. But I have a grandson who is in the prison system, and I think that at least in the women's prison, there's even some opportunity to go to school, or at least they used to be. I don't know, but it seems to me I think my husband was taking books to maybe a juvenile facility and that he was taking them all his old sci-fi stuff. You know?
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Yep.
But so I think there may be more opportunities out there than you're aware of, perhaps. I don't know.
It depends. It really depends on where. Well, that was also a while ago because unfortunately they recently, in the past like year or so, had stopped allowing books in certain facilities. It's interesting that you said that about the sci-fi. I was talking to you a little bit about this as well, that juvenile detention centers. Now think about this. Yes, these are kids that are having issues, but someone like my brother, Ryan, who had been in juvenile hall on and off since 13, for him, it was because he was not safe at home. It was because there was no food. It was because there was deep neglect. And by doing something bad, he was able to go into the juvenile system and have some structure in his life. It's very sad because a lot of these kids go into these situations, and I've talked to grown men with this too. They have this mindset that, Meg, there was never going to be anything for me other than prison. That was where I was going to go. That was me in middle school. I looked up to my friends and my guys and the older community members that are doing things on the grounds for their community, and they were all going to prison, and that's where I was going to go to. So it's really good to have, obviously, some fun in books like that too, because at the end of the day, these are kids. They're just kids. I think he wants the mic.
Sorry, okay, you can hear?
I can hear you.
Okay. I was just wondering are prisoners allowed to hold religious services at prison?
Yeah, that's a great question. It depends on the prison. I think it depends on the security of it, but I will say that most of them do have people coming in to prisons to, they'll have organizations that come in. My father-in-law actually, before I started doing this, he goes into prisons in Illinois, and he'll be locked in for a couple of days, and he'll be giving sermons, things like that. He's also They're for AA, and there's lots of groups that do go in for those things, which is great. I don't know that they can host them themselves. I'm pretty sure they'd have to have someone govern it or oversee it. But I could see them honestly going out to yard and just sharing the word with each other, because there's a lot of times where they don't want to mess with other things. They just want to be focused in themselves. There's a lot that goes on in yard. There's actually a lot of politics involved that I was unaware of. And so there probably are a lot of times where they do connect with each other just to stay out of those politics.
Anyone else?
From listening to you, it sounds as though there's a cultural issue in the prison system where it's punishment as opposed to restoration. Do you know what actions being taken, if any, statewide to improve that or change that situation?
There are a lot so Peaceful Prisons Project doesn't do anything with legislation, because we try to help those who are incarcerated or currently working in the prison system. There's a lot of people that do legislation, so I'm very hopeful that there will be people with legislation. But I do think culturally what needs to happen is people like us who see the humanity of other people, right? And we carry that out. You also have the correctional officers. So what we're doing with supportive forces starting in Maine, and I think next week actually, we are hosting a 2-day seminar for these correctional officers so that they can have the tools that they need. Because at the end of the day, correctional officers are just like you and I. They're people, right? And they have to face some really difficult things. I only talked to my brother and maybe a couple of guys that my brother was friends with in there. And I talked to men and women who have been out for a while and have their lives established, right? These people are dealing with people who have had mental health issues their entire lives, who have never had structure, it's hard to say second chance, right? It's hard to say that, oh, they're gonna get their second chance. Because people like my brother never had a first chance to start with. This was their trajectory. So by teaching the correctional officers to have those mental tools to be able to assist other people on that day-to-day, I'm hoping, and we're hoping, that through like breath work and things like that, that can really take down a notch of anger and make you remember, oh, that's a person. These are people. There are times it's very difficult for me to talk about because my brother would say that unfortunately they did take it out on him sometimes in juvenile hall and things like that, and it was just truly because they were having a bad day. So I'm hopeful that if we're starting it in Maine, it'll continue to trickle. And also by giving them the voice and the platform. I'll tell you a story too. So I was talking with, I call them my friends now because we are friends. We check on each other every day. But there are guys that I've interviewed for the podcast. It's very loose, it's very engaging, and they really just get to tell their stories. And so my buddy, he had a video going. He is part of the Rising Scholars program in California, and that is a program specifically for previously incarcerated people who are now in college. And if you ever listen to Anthony's story, he says he was like, I'm gonna go to school. He marched right over to that college and he said, I'm here to enroll. And they were like, well, that's online. And he's like, oh. And so now he went from that to being a leader in this program. And there was an older man that was trying to describe a book to his peers. And he was probably in his like 60s or so. And he was all tatted up, things like that. And Anthony was like, tell me about this book. And so he starts to talk about the book, and he's reading the back of the book. And Anthony goes, no, tell me what you really think about the book. So then the man kind of starts teetering, kind of starts talking about it. But then everyone else is starting to get engaged because Anthony gave him the space to talk about it, and he encouraged him. He was saying big literary words at the end of it, and he was so passionate about this book. And then what was great was that there was another older man in these chairs, and he goes, "What does that mean?" And the man that was standing there, who initially was just reading the back of a book, told him what that literary phrase meant. And so by giving each other the space, they're able to grow and flourish. And this part's emotional. I messaged Anthony and I was like, "Buddy," I was like, "I don't know if you realize this, but you just did that man a huge service." I was like, "He was so timid and you gave him the patience and the grace. And then by the end of it, he was so passionate and he believed in himself." And he said, "Well, Meg, that's because of you." And I said, "Full stop, don't say anymore." And he said, "It's because people don't give us the time of day to tell our stories, and internally we don't think we deserve that either." So by you asking me the question, how did that make you feel at 12 years old when your father was dozing off at an ice cream shop because of drug use? How did that make you feel as 12 years old? He said, "I now take the time to ask deeper questions." Anybody else?
Another question?
Well, thank you guys. I really appreciate your time.
As most people in this room know, I am rarely speechless. I am speechless. And I suspect you all are too. So all I can say is thank you so much for coming. Thank you so much for contacting us, Holy Spirit at Work. And for sure, the church has a gift for the Peaceful Prisons Project, and I'll be looking for it. I think it's on this podium. So thank you to everybody, and especially Meg, thank you to you.
Thank you guys for taking the space to